just pull up as much as you can and just try pushing you to the ground. So we're doing lesson 19 and 20 today. So one of the first asanas in lesson 19 is called Janu Sirshasana, which is the head to knee. Actually take your foot, you put it on the inside of your thigh. And what you try to do is with both hands, reach the foot in front. And again, you just keep trying to stretch it more, so if you can reach your heel. And of course, eventually you want to put your head to your knee. Right? Relax. And so start off just with the normal leg loosening. Then we'll try the same one on the other side. And then if you're able, put your heel and your head to your knee. And relax. Turn that on. Okay, there we go. The next one is Ardha Padma Paschimottanasana, which means the half lotus back stretch. So this one I've actually shown you before, right? It's one of my favorites because it stretches many things all at the same time. So you start off in this pose. You reach your hand behind your back and you grab your foot. You grab your big toe, and okay, and you grab your other foot, right? So I have a slight modification that I do myself. I start off with my head going to this knee, right, which is not in the book actually, but I like it. And then I follow that up with as per given in the book, your head to this knee, right? So again, you just go slowly, See if you can just reach your heel first. Feel that stretch. And then keep going as much as you can. Get your elbow to the ground if you can. And then finally, your head to your knee if you're able. And then back up. So try the same thing on with the other leg. back up. That's it for asanas in lesson 19. And lesson 20 also has one asana, I believe. The Matsyasana, the fish pose. So I showed you this last week. It's after you do the shoulder stand and after the bridge, you do the pose where you put your head backwards, right? So you stretch your neck in the other direction. Shoulder stand, you're stretching your neck forward and bridge. And then in the fish pose, you just stretch it backwards. So I showed you with your legs straight out and just doing that. The actual fish pose is done from Padmasana, right? So you would normally do Padmasana first, right? You hold your toes, and and you go back on your elbows, let your head fall back, and just press in your head. Try to stick your chest up as much as you can. And then lift yourself back up on your elbows and back up. Oh, that's the, actually, I should do that one from the side. Is it fine? Yeah. Good. Okay. And just come back on elbows. Turn back. And you hold your toes. Back up. And, oh yeah, there's one more variation here. I'll just show you the second variation. Yeah, from the one with the legs straight out I showed you already is that's the simple version. And there's one done from kneeling. Right? So you can also do it like from Vyaghrasana, like this. Right? So again, same thing. Just go back, put your head down, come down, stick your and just rest your hands on your hips.
It's the same as we have done before.
Yep.
Except that the neck and the head is sitting on the
ground. Yeah.
On the ground vertically.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's it. So I believe that's it for asanas in lessons 19 to 20. Yep. So in lesson 19, I started a discussion of all the chakras. It's a two-part. Lesson 19, lesson 20 has a full discussion. So there's some interesting stuff in here. I'll just mention it briefly. Again, very detailed, thorough explanations are given in this book. So, if you really want to fully understand, all the theory, this is a great book. But just briefly, he has little quick descriptions of each of the chakras.
Is it like the theory behind, or it could have a physiology of the body also along with it?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, there's the spiritual anatomy of the body and the physiology of the body. Everything. Actually, this book has a really detailed, thorough, and also the benefits of the postures. Go into detail. What the and all of the things you need to look out for. If you have this problem, you shouldn't do this or that, and all that stuff is also given in here. So again, I've been skipping all that stuff, right? I kind of expect you to to actually have the book to go through in detail to deal with your own situation, right? So anyways, I just wanted to just go over briefly what they say about each of the chakras, right? Again, so with all the chakras, sleeping basically, or not active, right? You have a very limited worldview, right? So what it says is that Muladhara is the base chakra, it's the most limited view. And basically at this point of realization, right? The individual fights the world, which is regarded as being totally alien, right? So it's just, it's a battle to survive. When your awareness is at that level, you feel that, life is a constant struggle, right? That you have to fight and work hard for everything, for every little thing you can get, right? But once you awaken Muladhara, then you realize that, life can actually be much easier than you thought it was, right? Shavasana, the next chakra up, this is about seeking personal pleasure, right? I think we talked about that last month as well. So again, pleasure in food or in drink or in sex and any kind of personal physical pleasures of the body, essentially, right? And then you realize you transcend that as well and realize there's more, more enjoyable things in life than just physical pleasure, right? Manipura. So this month we're going to do the practices to awaken Manipura. And Manipura is all about seeking personal power, right? Gaining wealth, gaining fame, achieving a certain status, right? You sort of feel that is what, you kind of move up to thinking that's what life is all about, right? And again, sometimes, when it hasn't awakened, you may tend to, dominate other people, right? You try to manipulate the world to get it to do what you want, right?
And it's to overcome those kind of feelings, or is to increase those feelings?
So if you're a combination of both, right? So
it's
yes, eventually you want to overcome them.
Yeah.
But eventually you want to get out of the place where you're just going after physical pleasure only, right? You want to leave physical pleasure behind and work towards actually building a life for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then after you've built a life for yourself, the next one is anahata, right? And again, perhaps you maybe were too domineering on other people. You didn't really, treat them with love like you. Eventually, as you evolve, you realize that you shouldn't dominate other people. You should, be more loving towards other people, right? And that's the heart center, anahata, right? Right. You understand people for what they are, regardless of faults and idiosyncrasies, right? You don't criticize as much. You start to realize that everybody has a benefit to offer, right? The next chakra is Vishuddhi, at the Adam's apple. And again, in this location in women where they don't have it, but
some people have more predominant, some people have less. You don't physically. It's the same thing probably.
Yeah, but this is the position. Yeah, the chakra is in this position here, against the back of the neck, opposite this on the back of the neck, and the shape is in the front, right? So at this chakra, you start to realize that the world is actually a very perfect place, right? You don't see, you understand all the problems that exist in the world, and you start to see the kind of the divine plan behind all of it, and you realize that there isn't really problems, or actually, right? That it's a giant learning process, and people are actually growing and developing through everything that's happening. It's actually a very harmonious and perfect place, right? So, the world, it becomes a veritable Garden of Eden, right? You see everything is perfect, right? Next one, Ajna Chakra. So once you realize the world is perfect, you actually even go beyond that, right? you start to realize that it's all like a virtual reality, basically, Maya, right? It's all just kind of a game we're playing, in fact, right? It's not the truth. It's all illusory. It's all temporary. I mean, all of our actions, our thoughts, all objects, right? Even our own body, our own mind, everything is all temporary. And you start to identify with the permanent aspect of yourself, which is your soul, right? So you see how your soul participates in all of this, and how it learns, and how everything else is just for the learning of the soul and the benefit of the soul, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing to do with this body or this mind. It's all just to help the soul evolve and learn, right? This whole virtual reality.
Is it like because of these physical aspects, people try to improve stuff? They want to achieve things like what we consider in the world that may not, spiritually they may not be satisfied, but they want to say, oh, I achieved this thing, I improved this thing, I innovated this thing. By awakening these chakras, does it impact that kind of desire to do?
Yes, for sure. You don't care anymore, right?
But the thing is that
Manipura, you don't care about worldly wealth and fame.
But the thing is that will it not mean that I know, like, you will be, like, people have invented so many things, people have come up with these ideas, oh, I have to improve this, it takes me longer to do this housework, let me come up with an innovative way to finish it in half an hour, like all the improvements in life, what's happening. That means if you're not considering those, that means that that will have an impact on the world, innovation, progress, all those things? Or is it like, is something different? These are two separate things.
Well, no, it's just evolution, right? It's process of evolution, right? I mean, there's plants, there's animals, there's human beings, right? There's beings beyond human, right? You keep evolving. Eventually you become God, actually, right? Eventually you have the ability to create an entire universe yourself, right? It's all about growing and learning and developing, right? Just a normal, natural process of evolution. Right.
And we are hoping that not everybody is becoming God. There are some people who are becoming humans to do those innovations and like people are going to.
The universe is a very big place.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
The universe is a big place, right? The Earth is just one grain of sand in the universe, right? Yes. So there's all kinds of things happening on all the different planets, right? And again, if you follow all my 2012 discussions, Earth is actually going through a transition very shortly, right? So again, many people will not want to, so we're going to leave Manipura behind, right? Everyone has to be at least, anahata or above to, that's what the Earth is going to require, right? The Earth itself wants to change its mode of operation, right? So anyone who's at Manipura and below will have to go reincarnate on a different planet where that planet is willing to accept that type of development, right? So, so this should be interesting. I guess the other interesting thing about this section is, so the other thing that yoga does is defines three basic qualities. So the universe is basically divided into three basic qualities of either tamas, rajas, or sattva, right? So, and basically everything in the world can be defined as either being tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic, right? So even the chakras are the same thing, right? So again, the Muladhara and Swadhisthana, the lower chakras, are generally considered tamasic, right? And tamasic is, negative, disharmonious, you're difficult, basically. You're making things difficult for yourself when you pursue things that are tamasic, right? So, Manipura and Anahata are considered rajasic, right?
Yeah, desire to dominate or...
That's right, exactly. So rajasic, again, has positive and negative, right? I mean, the motivation and the passion, those are all positive aspects of it, right? But then, like you said, the domination of other people, and sometimes, sometimes you want to, you get too... you start to be a little bit more selfish as opposed to selfless, right? You do service, you do things more to please yourself than you disregard the effect on other people, for example, right? So those are the negative qualities, right? Vishuddhi and Ajna, those are considered sattvic, right? Again,
And is it inversely proportional to control them? That means the Tantric are more difficult to control as chakras or awaken them, or is it they have put that relationship there? No.
Well, yes, those chakras when you awaken them can be more traumatic, let's say, right?
And it's difficult to awaken them also, or is it just that you consider it?
No, they're all equally, equally easy or difficult to awaken, right?
Okay.
The only thing is that when you awaken the lower chakras, right, it's all those negative aspects of yourself that are buried in yourself that come to the surface, right? So those can be a little bit more difficult to deal with, right? As you move up to the higher chakras, it becomes easier to transcend them, I think. So, yeah. But again, hard to say. So this book now, this part of this book, they start to go into the chakras themselves, right? So Muladhara they start with here. And the next chapter, Mulabandh, we did that already in the month 1 course, month 1 part of it. The pranayama practice continues, we'll get to that in a second. Another interesting part of this is the chakras in lesson 20 part 2, they talk about the granthis. These are the knots. So again, like we were talking about the difficulties that you can encounter, right? So one of these Brahma Granthi is at the Muladhara chakra, right? So again, attachment to physical pleasures and material objects, right? Excessive selfishness, right? Again, the power of tamasic, you get attracted to tamasic things, right? Like being lazy, for example, right? Some people find procrastination, laziness, those type of things find it very attractive, but you do destructive, it causes destruction in the end, but yet you can't resist doing that destructive thing, right?
Yeah.
That's the first difficulty to overcome, right? Vishnu Granthi is at the Anahata here, right? And again, it says this is now emotional attachment to people and to things, right? So you don't have maybe a physical attachment, but you have an emotional attachment now, right? So yeah. Basically, there's not much more to say to that, right? Basically, if something bad happens to someone you care about, right? You have to sort of understand, the truth behind it, as opposed to letting that, disrupt your own life, right? You have to see how best you can assist that person with what they're going through, right? And but understand that it's for their own development, their own growth, right? And it's ultimately for the best. Everything happens for the best. I mean, that's a common saying, right? Yeah. And you start to realize the truth of that. You have to, come to realize that that is exactly what is happening, right? So, so basically, you shouldn't be negatively affected by anything that happens to anybody or anything, right? So that once you transcend, that's when you transcend here, right? So kind of a bit of a, let's say, selfish love, let's say, right? And you go to selfless love after that. The final one is Rudra Granthi, and this one is at the Ajna chakra, right? And again, when you get to that point, you have, you can develop a lot of, psychic ability, right? So telepathy, clairaudience, and all kinds of psychic ability, basically. So once again, you can get too attached to it, right? You can be very, basically start to use those powers in like the wrong way, right? Instead of, again, for personal gain as opposed to the benefit of everyone else, right? So, and that's kind of the last thing you have to overcome before you achieve enlightenment, right? So that's another thing to consider as you awaken the chakras. A little discussion of the Kundalini. So again, as you awaken the chakras, the Kundalini energy will rise, and it will start to, you transcend the previous chakra, and you start to have the problems of the next chakra, and as you keep going up, right? They talk about Sushumna. So Sushumna is the nadi where the Kundalini energy will pass. And again, you have to make sure you remove these knots. The knots get removed, and again, Nadi Shodhana is the best way to open that passageway, right? And there's a whole, lengthy discussion of, the history of Kundalini and all of the, mythology of Kundalini. And Ardha Chakra. That's the next chakra this book goes into. They give the practice of Ajapa Japa. Ajapa Japa is actually for awakening the Anahata chakra. So we will do that next month, right? And that's pretty much it for this book. But yeah, I think it's the best thing. So we're on to the Manipura chakra, right? So this is the one at the navel, right? The Tibetans call it the city of jewels, or the jeweled lotus. Again, center of dynamism, energy, willpower, achievement, right? Actually, the other thing too is that it's compared to the sun, right? The sun basically transmits energy out to all of the planets, right? So the same thing, it says the Manipura chakra distributes pranic energy from here through the rest of the body, in fact, right? So again, all of our organs are in this part of our body, right? So it just energizes all of them and heals all of them, right? So again, if prior to awakening this chakra, you can have health issues, depression, lack of motivation. That's if you're at the lower chakras still, right? Once you get to this chakra, you transcend all of that. You'll have perfect health, right? You'll be very motivated, lots of vitality, right? And lots of commitment, So you generally, this chakra, you're enjoying life, right? You really you enjoy life, even if maybe you're dominating people or doing some negative things, but generally you're enjoying life and you're very energized and you want to get up, lots of get up and go, right? So you have to, a very important place to be, right? So again, it's located right at the navel, and the Shashankasana is at the navel, and the chakra is opposite the navel on the back, right? Directly opposite the navel on the back. Okay. And the other interesting thing here, the other thing too is that you basically left all animal tendencies behind, right? So the lower two chakras are generally associated with basically more animal, instinctive, survival type of behavior, right? But now you're moved into like the realm of the human being, right? Achievement, like you said, building civilization, right? Building technology, right? Doing all of these things is like the level of Manipura, right? And again, you learn a lot from that as well, right? Just like anything else. So the other interesting thing is that in terms of the way the prana moves in the body, right? So prana is actually categorized as 5 aspects of prana, right? There's prana, apana, vyana, udana, and samana, right? So what's special about the navel here is this is where prana and apana meet, right? So prana moves upwards and downwards between the navel and the throat, from here to here, and apana moves between the perineum and the navel. So from down here, from Muladhara chakra basically to the navel, right? That's apana. And basically the two energies meet at the navel. Right?
What is apana?
It's, again, it's a spiritual energy. So it's basically the spiritual energy is categorized, has 5 different categories or types or variations.
Prana is like life, or like prana is...
Yeah, so prana is the term to use to as a general term of the whole thing, right?
Whole thing, yeah.
But if you go deeper, right, there's actually 5 different types of energy, right? And I just gave you the 5 names, right?
The first one was...
Prana is the first one.
Prana is like which encompasses everything, or prana
no, so prana can encompass, you can refer to all of them by the word prana,
yeah.
Right? But you can also take prana in the context of within these 5 energies, one of them is prana, right? A special one type, right? Depending on how you're talking about it. So when you're talking about just the prana in terms of all 5 energies, it only moves from here to here, right? And it's apana that moves from Muladhara to the navel, right? And so when you exhale, right, prana moves from the throat to the navel, and apana moves from the navel to Muladhara. So everything moves down when you exhale, right? When you inhale, everything moves up. Okay? Exhale, the energy moves down, inhale moves up, right? And one of the practices that we're going to do is that you can actually change the direction of the apana, right? So through one of the meditation practices, you can reverse the flow, right? By reversing the flow of the apana, that can accelerate the awakening of the Manipura chakra, right? So, so when you exhale,
it's like exhale, it goes down.
That's right. So exhale goes down, and then now you reverse the flow here, so it goes up instead. So when you exhale,
the
energies meet,
okay.
And when you inhale, they go away, right? Okay. And then the exhale, they meet. Anyways, they have the practice. We'll go through it, right?
And what's the purpose of doing that, reversing that thing?
It'll accelerate the awakening of the chakra, right? So.
Oh yeah, because in normal, it's just a flow.
That's right, yeah.
But now doing it the other way, like it will be distracted more, or we can easily, because
that's right. You energize. You focus the energy in this one spot, right? You focus the energy in one spot, and then that causes the awakening.
Otherwise, the spot is just like any point, basically.
That's right. Otherwise, the energy goes evenly distributed, right? Yeah. So. So I'll just demonstrate the practice. So a lot of it is with stomach, moving the stomach in and out. A lot of the practices for awakening Manipura as well, right? So I'll just go through them all. So the first one, well actually not the first one, I'm going to do them a bit out of order, right? There's 6 practices altogether. Some of them, the ones that are done in Siddhasana that are more meditative, I usually do those at the end. And the ones that are more like, kind of like exercises, I do those ones first, right? Okay, so the first one is, well again, Agnisar Kriya I taught in the beginner class, right? But we'll just go through it again quickly. So, again, if you're unable to do Agnisar Kriya, the first practice is called Swanda Pranayam, the panting breath. So, I'll just demonstrate that quickly. So generally what you do, how you do Agnisar Kriya is from a kneeling pose, right? Well, I'll do it how they show. You can do it kneeling or standing up, Actually, and I'll do 2 this time. I'll just, there's like several stomach practices, so rather than keep pulling at my shirt, I'm just going to take it off. Okay. Right. So the panting breath is, again, very simple, You just, open your mouth, stick your tongue out, and you use your stomach to cause the exhalation and inhalation, right?
And you to notice that when you are exhaling that it is going in. Sometimes
so again, there's some benefit to be had from that. But basically, you want to do Agnisar Kriya. Agnisar Kriya, the benefits are 10 times as powerful, right? So Agnisar Kriya, you do basically the same thing except you exhale completely and you hold the breath out, right? And then you do the same thing. Okay. So the next one is Uddiyana Bandha. So this particular practice, I usually do it as part of the meditative part, but I'm going to show it now since I have my shirt off. So this one you do from Siddhasana. Cross-legged. So now this one you actually try to apply more force, right? So you exhale completely, right? And now you try to pull the navel towards the spine, and you pull the diaphragm up as much as you can, right? So exhale completely. And then inhale. So this practice is actually a little bit more than that, right? So you do what I just described. So you perform neck lock, bring your neck down, push it, try to push your chin against your as high up as you can on your chest here. Exhale completely, apply that lock, and then pull in the navel to the spine as much as you can. Pull the diaphragm up as much as you can, right? And then, when you're holding that lock, you concentrate on Manipura on the spine, right? Again, like I said, I'll explain where this practice fits into the whole thing.
And this is like you exhale everything.
Yeah.
Then this will be a short kind of thing. Then you repeat it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you do it for like maybe 10 seconds or something, 5 or 10 seconds,
and then
right?
repeat it.
Then you inhale again, right? Release the locks. Inhale. And then repeat, right? Again, you do it for maybe 3 or 4 times, right? 5 minutes altogether, basically. Right? The next one's Nali, right? So again, Nali is, again, this one is excellent, right? So the first practice of Nali, so you do Nali usually standing up, right? Okay? So the first one is called Madhyam Nali, right? So it's contracting these muscles here, right? Okay, so you're going to do the same thing. You do Uddiyana Bandha to start with, and then you forcibly contract those muscles now, right? And then breathe, right? The next one's Vamanali, right? So now we did both together. Now you try to do just one side, right? So just the left side, right? So same thing, exhale completely. Right? The next one's Dakshinanali. So that's the right side now. Right? So same thing again. Exhale completely.
Is there a way to control these muscles?
Just practice.
Practice, okay. Just like thinking that you are doing it, and then when you start thinking, then it start becoming. Then you can control it then.
That's right.
Because at present I'm just thinking that I'm doing this, but I don't know whether it is really being controlled.
Again, the best thing you just take your shirt off and then you can look and see, right?
Yeah.
So, then the final practice is that, like the full practice is actually to do them all together now, right? So there's 4 positions, right? So you do the central contraction, right? The left contraction, right? Then Uddiyana Bandha, where you pull everything in. Then you do the right contraction, and then back to the center. So it's a rotation.
And that's the sequence you should be doing, like center, left, center.
Yeah, center, left, Uddiyana Bandha, everything in, and then right, and then back to center, right? So you do like this, and you do the other way, right? So we'll, what would we say? Yeah. So we'll do it that direction first, right? So I'll rotate this way. So center, left, back, and then right, and then center. So that direction. I'll do it slowly a couple times, and then I'll do it quickly. Right?
It's quite visible. It's quite visible. I was thinking that you would be doing it in different breathing.
Yeah,
it has to be done like one exhale and then you do all of that together.
That's right, exactly. So now I'll do it the other direction, right? The same thing. Right? That was went both ways a bit.
Yeah, it did.
So that's it for now. We'll go through the meditative practices now. So the first one is you need to, just get a sense of where the chakra is actually in your back, right? So what it says is you stand in front of the mirror. Again, take your shirt off. Stand in front of the mirror, like sideways. And just basically keep your back straight. Put one finger on your navel. And then just, in the mirror, you'll be able to see. Right?
Align them.
Align them, exactly. So look in the mirror, right? And then you can align them where the chakra is, right? So now once you know where it is, right, now you're going to press on it, right? So just like we did for the other chakras, basically you press on that spot for like a minute, right? And then you take your finger away and you try to maintain your concentration there as well, right? And try to keep concentrating on it and try to feel it. Alright? So, you check the camera, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the camera's
it's
good?
okay.
Okay. Alright. So again, so about 5 minutes. So every practice you do about 5 minutes, right? So you do 5 minutes of like Kriya, 5 minutes of Navel, then do 5 minutes of this meditation. So you press for like 1 minute, and you meditate again for on it, then you concentrate on it for a minute. And you press again for 1 minute, and then concentrate again for a minute. And again, if your mind starts to wander, just repeat mentally Manipura, 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 right? The next one now you do with breathing, right? So you bring your concentration to the navel. You feel the navel moving in and out as you breathe. As you exhale, the navel goes in. You inhale, the navel goes out. And then eventually, that you're breathing in and out through the navel actually. So imagine that your breath is actually, when you exhale, you imagine the breath is coming out of the navel. When you inhale, you imagine the breath is going into the navel, right? Try to imagine you're actually breathing from your navel, right? You're inhaling through it, exhaling from it. So you're going to do that one for another 5 minutes or so. Then I'd recommend you would be on a bund practice actually. So now you hold your breath out, right? Exhale completely. And be on a bund. Neck lock, Jalandhar bund, be on a bund. And then you concentrate on Manipura in the spine, right? And release. Again, do that like about 5 times or so. Again, for another 5 minutes essentially. Right, repeat that. So the next one is, and then the last practice, basically after that, right? The last practice is the union of Prana and Apana, like I was saying, right? So let's just go through it. This one you could actually almost do for 10 minutes. In fact, it's a very powerful one. So again, Asana. You spend a bit of time to make the body completely still, right? So make sure, you can meditation posture, and then again, Kaya Stereo, if you remember from the beginning class, right? Spend a little bit of time doing that so that you feel that your body is completely still and solid, right? And again, then once again bring your concentration to the navel. Okay, so when you inhale, you imagine that a force is moving. One is moving from here down to the navel, the other one is moving from Muladhara up to the navel. So when you inhale, imagine those two forces are moving and meeting at the navel, right? And when you exhale, actually you hold your breath as well, right? Then hold your breath for like about 5 or 10 seconds, and you focus your concentration on the navel. And that's basically it. Actually, exhale, you don't do anything.
But it has to move in both directions, or just when we inhale, it's going in opposite direction, stretching.
Yeah, well, you don't really have to imagine anything when you exhale, right? Okay. Just imagine the energy dissipating. Just let it dissipating. But when you inhale, imagine it's coming from below and above and meeting at the navel.
Oh, you're saying it's in the opposite direction? When you inhale, it is going from navel, it's going up, and from the other side, it's going down.
Let's see, did he change his mind from what he said before?
Inhale is like, it's like water pouring
Now he's saying inhale, it comes down, right?
Yeah, it should go up from navel, unless they're doing it in opposite direction, just to awaken it.
With exhalation, prana descends.
Yeah, inhale, it goes up.
So he's saying the reverse this time, actually, in this part of the book.
Okay. It just...
They both must reach the navel at the point of full inhalation, right?
Oh.
So yeah, so he's saying...
go in the opposite direction.
Reverse, right? Yeah. So actually, this is how I did it, though. This is how I practiced it.
Okay.
Right? That seemed to work. So I practiced it according to the description here.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's interesting. It's different here.
Yeah.
Again, maybe you're reversing actually the flow of prana then in this case. Right?
Yeah, prana.
Anyways, I would recommend do it as per this.
Okay.
You inhale and imagine the energy is coming to the navel when you inhale. Right? It just seems more natural that way.
It seems natural, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're inhaling, something is going in.
Yes.
But I was looking at it in a different way. I was thinking that water is pouring in. That means that something is on the top of the water is going up.
But actually, though, in the later on practices, though, you actually move the prana up on inhalation. right?
Yeah, it just.
So it's hard to say which flow you're reversing. You might be reversing the prana flow, in fact, and you're keeping up and down the same. I think that's what it is, in fact, actually. So the other thing he says too is that eventually you do mula bandha as well, right? So once you've done a few rounds of imagining the coming up, you're doing breath retention, then you add mula bandha. So imagine the flow, inhale, imagine the flow is meeting, and then apply mula bandha at the same time as you concentrate on the navel, right? So you contract the perineum muscles, or the cervix muscles if, for women. And that is it. And again, do that for about 5 minutes as well, right? So yeah, so that's it for this class. Any questions or anything?
No, it's okay. Just that I did my regular yoga, but I didn't do the specifically like these ones. That's the thing. Like it cannot be done because they are. Do you do all of them every day, or it's just?
Well, no. I mean,
you decided okay.
Again, well, I see you didn't download my lessons, right? In each of the downloads, I have a text file which also explains, you know, my recommended practice program for like 1 hour, right? So about 20 minutes of asanas. Actually, I didn't explain Nadi Shodhana this time. So let me actually just quickly explain Nadi Shodhana because I skipped that. So in month 1, so again, in the beginning class, we did Nadi Shodhana. We explained, you know, inhale left, exhale right, exhale left. We added breath retention, right? So you inhale, you hold your breath for a certain number of seconds, and you exhale. And then we added holding your breath out as well, right? So at the end of the beginning class, the idea is to have a ratio of inhale 1, hold for 8, exhale 6, and hold the breath out for 2, right? So if you're using 4 seconds as the amount of 1, you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 8 times that, 32 seconds. You exhale for 6 times that, 24 seconds. You hold the breath out for 2 times that, 8 seconds, right? And you repeat, and you inhale again, 4. And so on. In the advanced course, we added the locks. In month 1, we added Jaladhara Bandh on inhalation. After inhalation, you apply the neck lock when you're holding the breath in. On the second month, we added Jaladhara Bandh after exhalation. So after inhalation, apply that lock, release, exhale, apply the lock again when you hold the breath out, release, and inhale. In month 3, we added Mula Bandh, right, on inhalation. So you inhale, you apply Jaladhara Bandh and Mula Bandh. When you hold the breath in, release both of them, exhale, right? And now this month, we're going to add Jaladhara Bandh and Mula Bandh on exhalation as well, right? So after you exhale completely, apply Jaladhara Bandh and Mula Bandh, hold the breath out, again, 4 to 8 seconds, then release them, then inhale. Next month, we'll add, so this month you have to practice Uddiyana Bandh, right? So next month we'll add that to the Nadi Shodhana practice, and hopefully I'll remember to throw in 5 minutes of that as well. Okay, so yeah, I guess that's it.
That's how they are all integrated, basically.
Yes, yes. Actually, and then when we get to the expert class, right after we've done awakening all the chakras, it's all combined. The expert class, all the practices combine everything all together, right? Yeah. Okay.
That's good. Thanks.
Good.